Let's bring in our panel. Charles Lane, opinion writer for The Washington Post. Molly Hemingway, senior editor at The Federalist, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Charles, to you first.
Well, I'm with Lindsay here. I don't trust the story. The Russians are leaking it clearly on a channel they know we're going to pick up. The Russians are masters of disinformation. They already have Washington with its knickers in a twist over the Russia conspiracy. This is an added twist. Somebody's going to get a hernia here. I think I'll stop the metaphor
if you would.
At that point. But we have no idea if it's true. Let's say it is true. Isn't the problem here, the accusation here, that there was some collusion during the campaign with the Russians? Well, everyone agrees if the story is true, it occurred after the campaign, during the transition. So unless there's some nefarious connection here, there's no connection to the what was alleged to have happened during the campaign. And lastly, we've had back channel connections with adversaries for generations. Henry Kissinger had them with the Russians and the Chinese. Hillary had a back channel to establish the opening of negotiations with the Iranians in what ended up as the Iranian nuclear deal.
And Barack Obama with Cuba.
It's absolutely, yeah, and the negotiations with Canada occurred in secret, occurred in Canada in secret, our negotiations with the Cubans. This happens all the time. I don't quite understand where's the crime, other than it's another piece that has Russia in the headline, Trump people in the headline, and thus it's supposed to be scandalous. Show me.
We should point out that Mr. Kushner has not been accused of any formal crime of any kind, and indeed he has, through his lawyer, pledged to cooperate with the various investigations. President Trump was quick to his son-in-law's defense, tweeting, and I quote, "Jared is doing a great job for the country. I have total confidence in him. He is respected by virtually everyone and is working on programs that will save our country billions of dollars. In addition to that," the president tweeted, and perhaps more importantly, "he is a very good person." But, Molly, is Jared Kushner now somehow suddenly a liability for this president?
Well, I mean, journalists in Washington, D.C. are living in some kind of dramatic alternate reality. They are willful participants in a coordinated leak campaign where you get selective information, half-truths. It's always without context. It's frequently incorrect. And then they use this to sort of prove the point that they've already concluded, which is that Donald Trump is a traitor in the White House. And then they backfill with information like this. In point of fact, if this is even true, such back-channel communications are quite common. I mean, President Barack Obama, before he was even elected, sent an advisor to Iran to set up back channel with that country. That was a sworn enemy of the United States. And somehow the media were able to handle that information without losing their mind. And yet here, as part of this drip, drip, drip campaign, we're supposed to believe that this is somehow quite nefarious without any evidence that it is in fact nefarious.
Chuck Lane.
Well, yeah, it's true. There's a lot of misinformation floating around in the media. I'm thinking of the conspiracy theories about Seth Rich's death. Some of the things that have come out of the White House involving the crowd estimates. So yes, we do have to be careful about the veracity of the information circulating in Washington. Having said that, unless I missed it, the White House has not denied this Washington Post story, have they? I don't think they have.
Well, sources close to Jared Kushner
told
our Catherine Herridge said that it wasn't his idea at all. It was the Russians, and it was a one-time.
That's different from denying. They're recasting it. Let me explain why. And I agree with all the people who said we don't know nearly enough about this. This is a very sketchy scenario at first. But it isn't true that it's totally innocent and has nothing to do with collusion, because obviously if there had been collusion during the election, this kind of special favoritism toward Russia could be the consequence of some sort of collusion and cooperation between these two people. Part of the reason people are suspicious about this is that President Trump, throughout his campaign, for what seemed to be extremely mysterious reasons, preferred one leader out of all the leaders in the whole world that he constantly praised, constantly touted as a potential American ally, and had no criticism about whatsoever, and that was Vladimir Putin of Russia. And that outstanding fact that separated him from all the other candidates, and indeed from every recent American political leader, cries out, is a very mysterious fact that cries out for explanation.
This conspiracy theory hangs on the word could. The fact that he's trying to establish a channel, or the Russians were, could indicate that there was collusion during the campaign. could. Yes, it could also indicate that, you know, anything is possible, that they could have invented a flying machine together.
No, Charles, that's why
Show
I said
me the connection.
That's why I said at the beginning we need to know more information about this.
In the absence of a connection, it's nothing but a conspiracy theory.
Molly.
And throughout the campaign, Donald Trump repeatedly said he looked for opportunities to work with Russia. Just because he doesn't share everybody else's hysteria about a country that is not just a superpower, but a nuclear superpower, and one that you do need to have some relationship with, doesn't mean that it's nefarious again.
A country that's trying to destroy our traditional allies, a country that persecutes homosexuals.
The president's also made clear throughout the stages of the campaign and even into the transition in his early days as president that it was quite possible from where he sat that he wouldn't get along at all with Vladimir Putin.
Well, of course, the irony is that relations haven't been very good.
Let me put one other thing to you, Chuck. I saw a headline on the New York Times today that I thought was fascinating. It states, simply put, a constitutional puzzle. Can the president be indicted? Chuck, is that something that's fit to print right now?
I honestly didn't read the story. It is an old conundrum of constitutional law whether or not
is it timely? Should it be on the front page of the New York Times?
I'm actually going to say, since I didn't read the story, I'm not going to give you an opinion on live television about that.
Whether the story was expertly crafted or not, do you believe the New York Times should be reporting on its front page on, what is this, day 140 or so of the president's term, can the president be indicted?
Well,
again, I'm not going to go there because I'm not going to question the news judgment of the New York Times about...
Dr. Krautheimer, we have 30 seconds.
All I would say is that seems to assume a crime. What's the crime?
I think a lot of people are wondering about that issue. I will put it to you that way.
People where?
In America.
Mostly in newsrooms, it seems like.
No.
But in fact, in the rest of the country, people are kind of wanting journalists to get a grip and get a handle on it.
Maybe they're wondering whether Seth Rich was assassinated by Hillary Clinton, things like that. That's what they're really wondering.
Well, I mean, to raise that, here we have the President of the United States, and the question is being raised by the leading newspaper in the country as to whether or not he could be indicted, and the subtext there is imminently, right? That this is timely.
James, I already told you I didn't read the story, so I don't know what its text was, let alone its subtext.
Okay.
Whatever the text, what's the crime?